and welcome to another episode of Pause for Payments. I'm Kristy Duncan, and I am really excited to have today two rising stars in the payments industry, Ellie Hewitt, who is at Visa in the UK, and Daniela Aubry from CIBC in Canada. I want the audience to know that both Ellie and Daniela are winners of the Women in Payments Rising Star Award and are indeed rising stars in their own right. Welcome, Ellie and Daniela.
Thanks, Kristy.
Today, we're going to talk about careers and your careers in particular and how your career journeys have led you to the Rising Star Awards. I've been really looking forward to today's discussion because you are both so accomplished and respected in the industry, and I'm dying to hear you talk about your career journeys and how you got there. So let's start by hearing some of your secrets to success, and perhaps we can start with Ellie and hear your perhaps just a quick 2-minute version of your career journey and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. So I started my career in Sydney as part of KPMG's management consulting team. As a very bright-eyed and naive graduate, I had no idea what payments was or even that there was an industry around payments other than shopping. But then I was lucky enough to get involved in the new payments platform program, which was the real-time industry infrastructure that we deployed in Australia in February 2018. And this was probably the largest systems upgrade and technology implementation in Australian financial services history. It was a really big deal across 13 usually competitive organisations. So KPMG had a really important role to act as the kind of central industry program management services organisation, or I guess the mediator in some circumstances. So we supported the design, the operations, participant readiness, comms, to get the industry ready for launch. And this really was a once-in-a-lifetime project to be a part of, and I was really lucky to have that so early on in my career. But then about 2.5 years ago, I decided to make the move to London, and still with KPMG in their payments consulting practice. Here I worked on a variety of bank-side transformation or payments modernisation programs, and was really fascinating to see some of the differences between the challenges that banks are facing in the UK compared to Australia. But as much as I was enjoying that work, about a year ago, Visa stood up a real-time payments department, which was absolutely my bread and butter, and turned out to be absolutely the right time to make the jump from consulting into industry. I'm now loving my new role at Visa. Working in the new payments flows space is really exciting. Every proposition that we develop, every client conversation that we have, or every internal conversation that we have as well is new. It's riding the wave of new technologies and new trends, but with all of the support and technology and operations of the world's biggest payments network. So that's fantastic, and here I am.
Absolutely awesome. I love that story. It's such a great journey and such great opportunities you've had. And what a great opportunity now to be able to use your expertise to give back in other ways and keep building on that across the industry and around the world. Thanks for sharing. Daniela, you've had an interesting career with some twists that you perhaps didn't anticipate or plan. Can you share a snapshot of your career journey and how you've managed to rising star status?
Absolutely, Kristy. Thank you. I started about 10 years ago in the fintech space with a company called Incom. They're a leading prepaid provider and technology integrator. And I started fresh out of college working on digital content and gaming prepaid products and really helping companies expand from the US into Canada. and sharing the Canadian retail landscape with them in that. I took from there progressively senior roles in the product management space and eventually assumed an executive role on the team in Canada, managing the Canadian sales team. That included the relationships with national as well as regional retailers, as well as the Canadian team across Canada. It was in that role that I really learned about the importance of building a team that is collaborative, of leading with transparency, and of the importance of a culture and fostering a really collaborative and team-oriented culture. And that was a tremendous experience. I left Incom and joined a bank, CIBC, in the enterprise payments team. So it was definitely a big change moving from a smaller fintech to a very large institution. On the enterprise payments team, I'm responsible for everyday payment products and mobile wallets. And I've been in the role for 18 months now, and it's been an incredible journey, learning a lot of new pieces, as well as leveraging those skills from my previous role. This role also has responsibility for payments modernization, and specifically the real-time rail that we're establishing in Canada, which is an incredible opportunity to influence how we build out the real-time payment system in Canada. So I'm very excited.
Awesome. I love how that's in the innovation space one way or another. That's so exciting. So you've each had some interesting challenges in your career. Daniela, you with new twins at home and 3 children under the age of 4. Ellie, transplanting your career from Australia to the UK. Can you tell us about some of your big career challenges and how you've managed to navigate through those? Why don't you start with that, Daniela?
Sure, Kristy. I have 2 big challenges that I faced in my career, 2 moments of decision. One was when I returned from maternity leave from having twins. So it was my second maternity leave. I had 3 kids at home, 4 and under, and I was very much overwhelmed. I returned into a senior role in the fintech that I was with, and I felt out of the loop. I felt like I had been focused on diapers and bottles, and even though I had tried to stay connected to the team and the workforce, I really wasn't sure if I could cut it as a mom and in my career. I actually came to the Women in Payments Symposium that year, and I saw a lot of amazing women who were incredible role models. They were balancing or managing, having kids, as well as an incredible career. And others had just incredible influence in the industry. And when I looked at that, I reflected, and it really inspired me. I really wanted to be that type of role model for my own daughters, and my own team and my own career. And so it was a moment of decision for me. I was considering perhaps pausing in my career and trying to focus more on my family, or continue to commit and continue to work. And for me, it was a decision point. And I found that symposium and seeing those role models really helped me see that it was possible. And I recommitted and reaffirmed and continued my work and delivered excellent results at the company that I was with. And then the second challenge or decision point was when I decided to leave that company where I had been for many years with a very strong internal network and move to a very different type of organization when I moved to CIBC. And that was a challenge in new subject matter, as well as learning a new culture, as well as understanding how to navigate a new type of organization and not having a strong network in where I landed. So it was definitely out of my comfort zone. It was definitely scary. And I think I worked to develop a network, leverage my external network, and really soak in all opportunities. There's a humbleness when you land and you're no longer the expert, but I took that as an opportunity to ask questions, to learn, and to reach out for advice and guidance from both my internal and my external friends, family, network. And it wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't an easy choice. It wasn't easy when I landed, but I think now looking back, it was an excellent learning and growth opportunity. And all of growth really comes from a point of discomfort. And that's not something that I like to do naturally. I'd rather stay in my comfort zone. But it was, you know, between the opportunity and understanding where I wanted to go in my career, something where I pushed myself out of that comfort zone. And I found really gave me an opportunity to learn about this incredible payments industry in a deeper way, and the amazing work that we're doing in Canada to modernize our payment systems, which has been very insightful and really lended to my personal growth and development.
Well, that's so interesting. I love the idea of getting out of your comfort zone. I love the idea of building your network, both internally and externally, to help you navigate through some of these challenges. But also just the whole learning component is so important. Good for you. Ellie, you've had some interesting challenges in your, you know, multinational career. Can you talk about some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think while moving to the other side of the world at the time, and for me personally, is incredibly exciting, there's also times where it's incredibly daunting as well. The path between Sydney and London is a very well-trodden path, I think, particularly in professional services. And I went in probably a bit overconfident, actually, that it would all be easy and fine. I was moving with a secure job with KPMG. Quite a few of my friends had also made the move or were making the move to London. I kind of thought of it as doing the same job but in a different place. But in reality, I totally underestimated, I think, all of the areas or the number of areas that I really would be starting from scratch. You know, I went from having a really extensive network of clients across the industry in Australia to knowing absolutely no one in the UK market. My new colleagues didn't necessarily know what my strengths or capabilities were. And there's a surprising level of difference between the two industries in Australia and the UK. Some quite fundamental differences, the scale of the market, some of the priorities and different challenges that banks are facing in Australia versus the UK, and also some kind of seemingly small things like terminology of BSB numbers versus sort codes is all kind of a learning curve that you don't expect. They're not things that you think about when you're picking up and moving your life. But in the end, it was a learning curve that I really enjoyed. I found it really useful to listen, read, ask questions, kind of go with the flow. But in the end, it all turned out okay. Very early in my career, one of the partners I worked for at KPMG at the time gave me some of the best advice that I ever received. And I've tried to make it the mantra of my career, and it definitely helped during that period. And that advice was that your career is really like a ball of Play-Doh or a ball of plasticine, which sounds a little bit weird, but trust me, keep with me. But the premise is that that ball of Play-Doh or plasticine will inevitably roll along. Your career will progress. You'll have the opportunity to grow inevitably, particularly if you're in a big corporate like Visa or KPMG, as I was at the time. However, if you know what you enjoy, or you know the shape of the career you want, or you're proactive, then you can mold that ball of plasticine or Play-Doh into whatever role, shape, direction you want. And whilst I certainly haven't always known what I wanted to do or what career moves I wanted to make at each stage, or where I'd be in 1, 5 years time, 6 months time even, I've always known what I enjoy. So being proactive to follow that line of enjoyment, learn more about the things that I enjoy and try to get involved in as many extracurricular activities as I can has really served me well.
I love that metaphor, the plasticine mold, and you're right. I think we can influence where our careers go. I mean, there's lots that just happens by chance or happens that we don't plan, but we can plan to develop our strengths and to get out of our comfort zone, as Daniela has done, and to do things perhaps a little differently from other people, to take on those extracurricular activities and take on other opportunities to help shape our career and build our industry profiles. So those are all great points. Thanks for sharing, Ellie. Daniela and Ellie have both mentioned your networks and building your networks. And I am a very big believer in the power of networks. And I will say very candidly that my career didn't take off until I really started seriously developing my professional network. And networking, I think, has a couple of levels. One is the internal network within the organization we're in, especially if it's a large organization, to help you navigate the culture and who's who in the zoo, but also the external networks to know what's going on in the industry and find other opportunities and places to learn. Can both of you share some examples of how networks have helped you to be more effective in your job? Ellie, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I guess the most important area where my network has helped is when I did make the move from Sydney to London. So as well as kind of trying to learn and get involved as much as I can, I also leaned on this Women in Payments network quite a lot. So I first got involved in Women in Payments a couple of years before, having presented a panel on the new payments platform at the Sydney Symposium. And after getting involved in Sydney, I knew that this is a network that would be open and welcoming. So I reached out. A combination of pretty much cold calling people in the Women of Payments network to also using my existing network to facilitate introductions. And the more people I met, the easier everything became. And inevitably, there's also a really good network of Aussies in London. Inevitably, all of the Aussies in London seem to find each other. I'm nearly, I think, on a weekly basis, get introduced to a new starter at Visa that's also Australian, and someone says, "Oh, you two should have a coffee." There's 60,000 Australians that live in London, which is a huge number, but seemingly it's still a really small community. And then the Aussies in London in payments is an even smaller community. So that's fantastic. Last year, I was also lucky enough to be selected in the Money 2020 Rise Up program in Singapore. So Rise Up is a global program designed to empower rising female leaders in payments and fintech to help build their careers. This was a really full-on but totally awesome 3 days of intense speakers, networking, mentoring with 25 other fabulous women, and a phenomenal panel of mentors and speakers that we got to engage with over the week. And this was the first time that I had really engaged in a formal networking group. A formal networking group beyond my day-to-day colleagues or clients. And honestly, I didn't realize what I was missing. I've kept in touch with all of these women. We have a WhatsApp group that's constantly buzzing with the girls sharing milestones, challenges, job opportunities, and just generally cheering each other on. So I have found networks really important, for job mobility or client engagement, but learning from the Money 2020 program, I've really loved being in these groups and discussions to learn new things. I predominantly work in the European market in, frankly, quite a niche part of the industry. But every topic, every trend, market is all connected. And I find that my network really now is my biggest source of news, my biggest source of education, debate around new products, trends, and even sometimes some really bad payments memes as well.
I'd love to see those.
You don't. They're not good.
We're the only ones that find humor in those, I think.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Like you.
That's okay. I love the multi-layered approach you've taken to networking, Ellie, within your organization, outside your organization, networking with your Women in Payments tribe, networking with your Australian tribe. It seems to have worked really well for you. Daniela, you've done a lot of networking in your career, not only within your current organization, which is much larger than your previous organization. Can you tell us about the power of networking and how it's helped you in your career?
Yes, for sure. I think I talked about attending the first Women in Payments conference when I was back from my mat leave. And that wasn't happenstance. I had a new coworker join our organization, and we worked together for a few months, and she saw my return from mat leave, and she came into my office one day and said, "You're doing a phenomenal job, but you need to get out of these four walls. You need to see what's happening outside of this. Nobody's going to come tap you on the shoulder and say, come over here for this excellent opportunity. You do have to seek it out, and you do have to see what's out there." So she was the reason I attended that conference. And I think different people in your network serve different purposes. Part of that is for perspective. And I think on that day and in the relationship we've had since then, she specifically has given me perspective. What is outside of the organization that we're in? What is happening in the industry? And sometimes you can get tunnel vision working on a project or an initiative day in and day out, and having people in your network that are external to that, either in a different line of business, in the same industry, or in a different industry, they can give you sort of the objective perspective to help you ideate or have diversity of thought in the situation that you're in. And I found that's one of the most important pieces of the network. The next one, I think, is really having people that challenge you. I talked specifically about how I had to be pushed a little bit out of my comfort zone in different parts of my career. And knowing that I'm that type of person, I've sought out people in my network that will challenge me to continue to put myself in those positions or situations where I might not be the most comfortable, to raise my hand when I might not be the most sure of the opportunity. I always remember from the Women in Payments conference, where only women who have 99% of the qualifications will apply for a job, whereas men, it's more around 70%. And I took that with me in building my network and finding those people that will push me in those opportunities that I might not have thought I was qualified for or ready for. And so I have one specific mentor that constantly will put me in a situation and not give me a ton of information and kind of let me sink or swim, but it ultimately has been some of the best learnings and some of the best validation of that confidence that I do have those skills to contribute in the industry and in the work that we're doing. And then finally, the last one is reaffirmation. And so I talked about how I came to that point in my career and decided I wanted to be a role model for my children and wanted to try to balance, or at least manage through, having a few children and having a career. I didn't want to put my career on the back burner. And so I sought out in my network women that were similarly doing that or could help me reaffirm that. I have one woman in my network who's a PhD and also has a child and is also writing papers and doing research, and just a phenomenal job in her career. And it's wonderful when you're in those moments of uncertainty, you can call those types of individuals up and they can help reaffirm you and keep you on the path or on the commitment that you were on. So those are some of the few types of individuals or roles I seek out in my network. And then internally, it's similar. Are there like-minded people internally who are fostering a similar culture, a similar leadership style to you, where you may not be in the same line of business, but I personally believe very much in transparency, teamwork, and collaboration. I've always tried to lead my teams that way. And I'm always seeking out individuals that have a similar style to me in that, who are also looking to grow and develop talent in a similar manner. And I found that internally, when you can bond or resonate with people on that type of specific beliefs, it really helps strengthen the network. Whereas when you're very work focused, you can sometimes miss those true connections that you can get out of your network and your mentorships.
So fascinating. That's really inspiring. Thanks, Daniela. I think a lot of this boils down to the community we have internally in our organizations and externally outside our organizations. And those networks serve so many purposes: to find opportunities to reaffirm what we're doing, to act as role models for us, and help lead us along our career, to help us shape our plasticine. This has been a great discussion. I want to close out by asking both of you to perhaps share some career advice with our audience that you might offer to navigate to career success during a global pandemic. Ellie, any thoughts?
Yeah, I've changed one quite fundamental thing, and I've used this as an opportunity to do some things I wouldn't normally do. And I think the fact that everyone is now working virtually and using Zoom, it's normalized the concept of a virtual catch-up. So I've been able to reconnect with a huge number of my colleagues and friends back in Australia that I normally would feel weird reaching out to say, hey, should we have a virtual coffee catch-up? So it's been great to do things you normally wouldn't do and normally wouldn't have the time to do. You normally wouldn't have the time to go and traipse across London to meet somebody else for a coffee face-to-face, but you can do that virtually. Although my one challenge has been quite a number of times where I have had to sit on a Zoom catch-up or a virtual catch-up with my coffee or tea in the morning while my friends and colleagues in Australia have been having an evening beer, which isn't quite so fun.
I love that. Thanks, Ellie. Yeah, the pandemic is showing some opportunities, but also perhaps highlighting some of the differences, time zones being one.
Yeah.
Daniela, any thoughts to share?
I think one of the things that I've learned in mentoring or being a mentee is that nobody cares as much as about your career as you do. And nobody understands the contributions that you're making as well as you do. And so it's really important, especially now when you have some time to perhaps reflect, to stop and pause and write some of those things down. And not only the quantifiable things like I grew the business 10%, but things like I grew it 10% by establishing a team that was focused on a common goal. And so the transferable skills are really important. And I agree with Ellie, the coffee chats, virtual coffee chats are a very easy way to connect with people. But when you connect, you want to have something to say. And nobody, again, is going to ask you for the best parts of your career in a general coffee chat. And so you have to be prepared with a couple of the key messages, and they have to be relevant to the person that you're talking to. So do some research as well on the people that you're reaching out to the coffee chats for. And don't be afraid of the hierarchy. Don't feel like you can't reach up. I've had a ton of people over this time reach out to me for a virtual coffee chat just for career advice or exploratory opportunities. And I've said yes to every single one of them. And I think Ellie's right. The fact that we're at home and we're not running from building to building has actually afforded us all a little bit of extra time. And I think everybody also knows that we're in a very weird spot in the world and that human connection is really important. And so if somebody's reaching out to you, you do feel compelled to say yes if you can make it work. And you do want to check in and make sure that they're doing well. And then when you use their time, you want to use it valuably. You want to have some of the background done and some of the key messages that you want to share. So I think, you know, in the ones that I've done over this period of time, those are some of the key learnings that I would share with everybody here.
Those are very insightful. Thanks for sharing, Daniela and Ellie. This has been an absolutely fabulous discussion, and I can see now very clearly why you both are Rising Star Award winners from Women in Payments in different countries, but in different roles, but both making a huge contribution to this industry and showing some leadership that I have full confidence will continue going forward. So thank you both for sharing.
Thank you, Kristy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
I'm going to encourage our audience to continue joining us online for this and other Pause for Payments webinars that we record every week on either an industry topic or a career topic, and hit some really cool topics for the industry in various different markets. And it's so fascinating to see what's going on in all of our different markets. So thanks both for joining us, and I look forward to more of the same from both of you.